On this episode of the AAF Exchange, the current and future Federal Reserve, and the latest on DHS funding and reconciliation. Joining us to break all this down are AAF President Douglas Holtz-Eakin and Director of Fiscal Policy Jordan Haring. Doug, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
So before we jump into the Fed, what's been on your mind recently?
The AP style guide. I know, no one believes this, but they announced that in the AP style guide, the correct treatment for healthcare is going to be one word, HEALTHCARE, which is an abomination.
Yep.
Americans are not so lazy they can't hit the space bar. I don't know what is wrong with these people, and I'm not changing. Other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, that took up more of our Friday than I care to let the public know, but...
Who do these people think they are, hijacking the English language?
I mean, it's been a long-standing debate.
It's not a debate. They're
outside
wrong.
of AAF, but AAF has a very clear position on this. AAF doesn't take positions very often as an organization, but on this we will.
We're putting spaces where appropriate. We're not cutting corners here. I don't believe this. I really don't.
Yeah. But I know there's other things on your mind this week.
Budget airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan, really a big fan, fanboy, I guess that's the term, of everything the administration is doing with plowing money into Spirit Airlines and $500 million loan, taking what is reported to be a 90% equity warrants for a 90% equity stake. This is just terrible. It's a terrible policy, makes no sense, indefensible. And then, the other budget airlines take a look at this and go, wow, they're getting some help. Why don't we get some help? So evidently reports are that the White House is seriously negotiating a $2.5 billion subsidy for their jet fuel because of the high prices of global oil. You know, it's just like flying farmers. Like we put in tariffs and the farmers are getting killed, so we hand the farmers some money. Why don't you just sort of think about the policy from beginning to end and not put themselves in this position?
Yeah, so Fred, our colleague, has a great piece on this. We're basically talking about the whole thing of this, because this is just another part of, pick your keyword phrase here, government intervention, winners, losers, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's just a continuation of those types of policies we're seeing out of this administration.
This sort of state capitalism or whatever, sort of name you want to give it. It's unprincipled by definitions. It's ad hoc. It doesn't have any guiding. What's the guiding principle that says we put money into Spirit Airlines and not a million other failing businesses in the economy?
Yeah,
none. So. I find it all very troubling. I mean, this is not a good development.
So, I mean, this isn't the first time we've bailed out, but this
not at all.
Is this the first time that we've taken equity like a stake in running or in these types of companies?
Going way back, to my memory, what's the first one? It was Chrysler bailout back in the late 70s. Warrants took the equity, sold it off. So there are precedents for this. The claim is usually made that the entity or sector, like the Obama quote, bailed out the auto sector. Remember that, all the automakers. So it's either national security or extreme economic importance, an entire sector of the economy at risk, in that case, the Midwest. Steve Ratner would say, look, the whole Midwest is at stake. So it's been done before. The rationales exist. This fits none of them.
Yeah. So it's the difference is it's just this is singular companies we are deciding to go.
Singular companies.
But in the past it's been a wholesale sectors and things like that.
So even this administration, they took the Defense Department has a controlling stake in MP Materials, the rare earths mining enterprise out in California. It has also been in and out of bankruptcy, but rare earths are now a national security priority, and so the rationale was we do that. Mm-hmm. What is at risk with Spirit Airlines? Mm-hmm. The cheap Florida vacation market. Yeah. That's not a national security risk. I'm sorry.
Interesting. All right, well, let's move on to something that's happening as of recording literally right now.
Yes.
So the Federal Reserve just announced, again, as of recording, its latest rate decision. What did we learn about how it views the economy?
The decision was to leave rates unchanged. The decision was an 8-4 vote, 4 dissents is the most since 1992. And 3 of those dissents, regional Federal Reserve presidents, were to leave rates unchanged but remove the language that was viewed as a bias toward rate cuts and make it more neutral. And the other dissent was Stephen Myron, who always dissents in favor of a rate cut. He wanted a 25 basis point cut. I think that tells you a lot about the concern at the Fed of the fact that inflation remains stubbornly above the 2% target, and now we've got the upward pressures from the Iran war hostilities. And the idea that there's a bias toward cuts in a what looks like an inflationary environment doesn't appeal to some members of the FOMC. This is a traditional split. Regional Fed presidents are always more hawkish than sitting members of the board. So that worked out in the typical way, but it's a lot of dissents for Powell, especially at his last meeting. He was very good at keeping everyone together through the tough times after the big inflation run up and figuring out when to finally ease. So I think it's notable that it happened on his last meeting.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, so it'll be pretty interesting to read what the minutes next month are for this meeting. But so in terms of a read of the economy and what things look like, tomorrow's PCE report will be the first that has the upward pressures, correct?
Yes.
So we'll be able to learn more about all that tomorrow?
Yes, and in his opening remarks at the news conference, Powell said that using data from the CPI, they anticipated that the year-over-year PCE would be 3.5%. And the core would be 3.2. The core last month was 3. So that's a big move up in the core because it's not the energy price shock. That's literally out of there. And so that tells you that he attributed it to tariff pressures, sort of fully phased in over a year, and that's why I think they're concerned. They already had a problem. Now they have a new twist on it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about Chair Powell's future.
Yes.
What did this meeting and his press conference tell us about Chairman Powell's future, and why does this matter so much?
So he arrived at the press conference and gave the usual summary of the actions, the state of the economy, and how they think about monetary policy. And then he said, "This is my last meeting as chair. Let me make a few personal remarks." And he thanked his colleagues for their service, talked about how important the Fed was as an institution and how it was guided solely by its mission, explained how important it was for the American people to understand the Fed, thanked the press for their job in reporting it, and then said, "This will be my last meeting as chair. I will remain on the board of governors for a continued period, the length of which is to be determined." And he wants all shadow of a doubt about the investigation to the Fed to be removed before he steps down. It's largely removed, right? Mm-hmm. The DOJ stopped the criminal inquiry. The Fed IG is doing its work. Powell started that, for the record. I mean, people don't quite realize that. But the DOJ reserved the right to restart the investigation, and he wants to he's been told they won't, but he's making sure before he steps down.
So in a lot that IG report is about the building costs.
It's all about the building. It's a firm audit of the cost of the two buildings, the renovation of the two buildings, and why it's so much higher than originally anticipated, and also a thorough scrub to make sure there is no malfeasance of any type in the bidding on the contracts and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So outside of the him staying on through this, it's important to talk about the people on the Fed, because if I remember back to when Powell was renominated for this, there was a lot of talk about he got off to too slow of a start to tackle inflation because there was the whole nomination thing going on.
I believe that. I don't know if the world believes that. I don't know if history will decide that. But I think the Fed had they made a big policy error in 2021. That's just the reality of it. And I think there were two reasons. Number one, with the advent of the vaccines and the opening up of the economy, they thought they were back in 2019 when they ran a very loose monetary policy with no inflation. And so they thought, okay, we've got this inflation. This is probably global supply chains, but we're back in 2019. It'll be transitory and go away. And they were just wrong.
Yeah.
So that's mistake number one. And then number two is, we're wrong. Are we going to change directions? Well, like, we don't even know who the chair is going to be next year, and this stuff takes time. And if we change direction now and they appoint a different chair, we're going to end up crossing ourselves up. So let's wait until the leadership's in place and then go. And the Biden administration waited until December to renominate him. And so it was really clear in September they had a problem. August, to me, so they waited half a year and let the inflation gain momentum. And that really hurt him.
So speaking of who the next chair is going to be, let's talk about the future of the Fed. The confirmation process for Kevin Warsh is underway. I believe
he got voted out of committee.
I believe he got voted out of committee today.
Yes.
So that'll go to the floor at some point when Leader Thune brings it up. How do we foresee the Fed under his leadership?
I think it's going to be really interesting. We know, number one, he has said repeatedly that he wants the Fed to have less of an impact on markets and the economy, a smaller footprint. That's been interpreted as reducing the size of the balance sheet, but more generally focusing its efforts on the monetary policy mission, maybe financial stability, but get it out of any other kind of activities that might have gotten wandered into. So a focused Fed. He's been real clear that he believes that the Fed owns inflation and that inflation is something that you can always trace back to the Fed, and that would put him on the side of the hawks right now. He's been appointed by the ultimate dove. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. There has been a presumption that he's been sent there to cut. I don't think he has the votes for a cut right now. I don't know how the president will react if he doesn't cut. But he will, maybe not quickly, but he will, in his actions as chair, determine his legacy. Nothing that went before is going to matter.
Yeah, and a lot of like his confirmation, the stuff that's the stuff that's up against him at this point is you can't really do anything to disprove that until you're in the job too and see how it goes.
I mean, I told other people this, and I'll repeat it here for one more time. I was in a similar position.
Yeah,
I was the first and to date the only CBO director to come directly from the White House. Senate and Senate and House Democrats were convinced that was a political hack sent over to destroy the nonpartisan CPO. And there was nothing I could say that would disabuse them of that notion. I just had to do the job.
Yeah.
And time took care of that. Kevin's in the same position.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to wait and see, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of discussions over the next few years about his actions on the Fed. So before I let you go, let's do the trivia question.
HEALTH space CARE. That's got to be the answer. No. Okay.
All right. No, this isn't the spelling bee question.
Sorry.
Regroup. All right. By how much did the U.S. imports of electric vehicles from Canada decline in early 2026 compared to 2025?
96%.
Right on the money.
I mean, that's a stunning number.
Yeah.
That one sticks in your head.
It really does.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes, there's a lot of trade tension between Canada and the U.S. right now, as we just learned from one of our interns.
Listeners don't know that we had an intern to give a great talk on this.
Yeah, but I mean, so is this driven mostly by, the tariffs and things like that are going on?
And the decline in demand for EVs. I mean, we've taken away the mandates that basically we're going to kill off gasoline-powered cars and things like that. So overall demand for EVs is down. Tariffs are on those EVs.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah. So it's more of a market has moved away from them as much as possible. All right. Well, on that note, Doug, thanks for joining us.
Happy to join.
I don't know. So before, do you feel any better about your Penguins? I know last week we were ready to just throw in the towel. But...
Let me think. What's the right answer? No.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with the Bruins. I think they're getting my hopes up to crash me hard.
I think we're aimed for a beautiful Game 7 defeat, and I can't stand the thought.
I think I said to you the other day, like, Pasternak had the great goal last night, and then what's going to happen is game 6 or 7, we're going to be up 2 going into the third period, and then we're going to blow it and lose the game.
Yeah, well, In those circumstances, my defense is I always go to bed before the game's over, so the pain doesn't arrive till I get up in the morning.
Yeah, but then I'd have less time to deal with it, and then I have to turn around and come in and deal with you smirking at me all day, or just walking by my office and seeing how miserable I look. All right, Doug, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Jordan, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a busy couple of weeks for you.
It has.
In the Senate and the House with things moving along, but we've had this stalemate over the Department of Homeland Security funding, which has spurred a movement to a reconciliation bill.
Yes.
Thought we were done with those for a while, but here we're back again. Where does this stand, and what does the Republican Congress hope to accomplish?
Yeah, so at this recording, we are on day 73 of the Department of Homeland Security shutdown. That has been the result of an impasse over funding specifically for Customs and Border Protection and ICE. And so to get around this, the plan that Republican leadership has coalesced around is to do kind of a two-prong approach. So to pass an ordinary funding bill for DHS, accept funding for ICE and CBP, and then to do a second reconciliation bill that would provide funding for CBP and ICE through the remainder of the president's term. And reconciliation can be passed with a simple majority, so you don't need 60 votes in the Senate to get it over the finish line, you just need 51. So at this point, the Senate Budget Committee put out its budget resolution last week that instructed the Senate Homeland Security and Judiciary committees to each construct reconciliation measures up to $70 billion, and it instructed those counterpart committees in the House to craft reconciliation instructions of the same amount. The Senate has adopted the budget resolution, and then this morning, the House has also voted on the rule to proceed to debate over the budget resolution that will likely pass. And then the committees of jurisdiction have until May 15th to craft their reconciliation measures, turn them into their respective budget committees, who will then conference it into a comprehensive package for consideration in both chambers. And it's important to say that, there had been discussion in the beginning of the year about if there was going to be a second reconciliation bill, and there was talk of maybe doing it to include measures to deal with the affordability crisis that's currently going on in the country. That kind of fell to the wayside. And I will say that the only reason they are actually doing this reconciliation bill now is that they can't get the support they need from Democrats to get DHS funding over the finish line. So this is kind of the workaround and the solution they came to kind of ensure that not only are the non-ICE and CBP portions of DHS funded, but also ICE and CBP are as well.
Just sticking with the process of all this for a second. So right now, the Senate has passed the budget resolution, but also of the non-ICE and the non-controversial parts of DHS. That is now sitting with the House, and they're waiting on doing that right now, correct?
Yes, and importantly, I will say it would be smart to get the non-DHS funding portion over the finish line as soon as possible, because the administration did some maneuvers to move around funding that allowed DHS to continue paying the majority of its employees during this funding impasse. But as Secretary Mullen has indicated, the amount of funding that's available for DHS to pay employees is going to run out. They're going to have enough money to issue the paychecks that's coming out this week, but after that, they will not have adequate funding to continue to pay employees.
Right, and one of those is TSA, which we're coming up on summer here, and I imagine a lot of people want to take summer vacation.
Exactly, and Secret Service as well. So the Secret Service, the field agents have been getting paid, but the administrative personnel have not. And another point that I will make is that a lot of Secret Service agents have had to put their work expenses on their personal credit cards, which affects their credit, and they haven't been able to be reimbursed because the funding there for reimbursements isn't available.
It's always those little things that you don't really think about when it comes to this sort of stuff. Okay, so after the budget resolutions are done, then the committees get to work on trying the whatever committee's got instructions, get to work on building out the actual reconciliation bill.
So it's the Judiciary and the Homeland Security committees in both the House and Senate.
And is it your sense that they will stick to just ICE and CBP, or will they sort of try to...
So that is the goal. I know and that is the goal of leadership. I know that there are some rank and file members who would like to see the package expanded and include other things, potentially including the Save America Act has been one of the things that has been floated as being included in the bill, just from a 30,000-foot level. There are special Senate rules that the package has to go through, and it's likely that the Save America Act would not make it through to the final piece of legislation. But I think the goal of leadership to actually get enough buy-in from the rank and file to actually get this over the finish line and get it over the finish line in a timely manner onto the president's desk is to keep it as targeted and narrow as possible.
Yeah, it always brings into the Senate rules with their bird bath, which is my new favorite term of all time. But so what do you think the likelihood of this approach, of the effort to fund ICE and CBP via reconciliation?
I mean, I'm optimistic that it'll get done. The budget resolution does specify that the committees of jurisdiction craft their measures and return them to their corresponding budget committees by May 15th. I'm optimistic they can meet that deadline if this package remains as narrow and targeted as it is. And I know that the president has put it out there that he would like the package on his desk by June 1st. So I'm optimistic and bullish on the fact that it can get done in a timely manner. But I think if we get to a situation where you have members trying to attach other things onto it, I think that's where it can get messy. But I think if leadership tries to keep it as narrow and targeted as possible, I think that they can get it done in a reasonable amount of time.
Just from a pure calendar perspective here, we have an election this year, midterm, so Congress isn't going to want to be sitting here debating a reconciliation bill for a long period of time. And they also have the FY 2027 budget to get moving.
Appropriations. So some work on appropriations has begun in the House. You've seen some of the bills advance out of their subcommittees and now are under consideration by the Appropriations Committee. It's interesting, though, that they're starting to do 2027 appropriations when, we kind of haven't finished FY26 appropriations because we're still hung up on what to do about DHS. But that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see because, September 30th, when FY26 ends and the CR that's been in place to fund them since earlier this year is going to expire, and it'd be interesting to see whether or not there's going to be the threat of a government shutdown. And given that this is an election year, are you going to see the Democrats want to shut down the government again and possibly have that shutdown last up and through the midterm elections to try to score political points and maybe get them to win the House and possibly the Senate?
Yeah, it's all going to be interesting, and we'll have to watch it all play out, I guess.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us and
thank you.
Talking us through all this.
I will. Thank you.